Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 38 of From the Van. It's a podcast from my van, where I have conversations with people who have relationships with residential vehicles. I'm your host, Marty Benson, and today's episode features Allie Powell. Check this out. Allie lives in Denver, Colorado, in a 1981 Chevrolet G10 van, which has given her, poetic mechanical issues. And she's putting out a book called Heartbreak Roadtrip, which we talk about in this conversation. I won't spoil the details. We had a great conversation with this woman. I had just met her a couple of days before, and she turned out to be super jubilant and rad. I look forward to going and visiting her in Colorado. Please enjoy episode 38 of From the Van, featuring Allie Powell.
It's fucking cold today.
Yeah.
What's up with that? Well, you're used to it, huh?
I was just telling her as we were walking over here, I was
we're wimps here.
I was like, you'll see people around this part of California, it'll sprinkle for 2 days.
And they're like,
and they'll be
oh
like,
my God.
I feel like I'm never going to see the sun again.
They post about it on Instagram all day. They're like, oh my God, it's raining out.
Yeah. I've got seasonal affective disorder, and it's been cloudy for 2.5 hours.
You forget how to drive. It's all that good stuff.
Yeah. It's cool. It just dumped almost 2 feet of snow in Colorado.
Yeah. But one of the things you will see is totally real, is that if you tune into the local news on the internet or whatever tonight, if it does this, or even actually there's a real substantial rain, there will be an uncanny number of crashes on the interstate.
Wow.
Because there's a bunch of oil that's been saved up for months.
Yeah.
But it rained last week.
Yeah.
So we already had first
but
rain.
it's still there. And B, because people don't know how to... B, because we don't... It is coming down. We don't engineer our highways to shed water very well.
Yeah.
And people don't know how to drive in the rain. So it's this confluence of terrible circumstances.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast, Allie.
Thanks.
What's your last name? I don't know
Powell.
your last name. Powell?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And you live in Denver?
You do.
In a van?
Yep.
At a climbing gym?
Yes.
What's the name of the gym?
Earth Trucks.
Okay.
So our location is the largest climbing gym in the country.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so we have 2 Earth Trucks locations in Colorado. Mm-hmm. We just acquired another climbing gym called Movement. So we acquired their other 3 gyms in Colorado.
Wow. Okay.
And we have 5 on the East Coast, also under the Earth Trucks umbrella. And then 4 on the West Coast. So 3 in the Bay, 1 in Portland, called Planet Granite.
Okay.
And then we're about to open 2 more.
When you acquire them, do you change the name to Earth Trucks?
We're eventually working through kind of a whole rebrand thing.
Oh, okay.
So we're all going to change the name.
Right on.
Yeah.
What is your position there?
I'm the marketing coordinator.
Okay.
So I do all of our events, social media, stuff like that.
Nice.
Partnerships with the community.
Does that permit you to travel a lot? Or require you to travel a lot?
It doesn't require me to travel, but they've been really great about letting me go on trips like this. Yeah. And I went on a month-long road trip
Righteous.
back in August, and I was able to work remote the entire time.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Dope. And you're working on this trip, too?
Yeah.
Cool. Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Maui.
Okay.
And so I grew up on Maui, went to college on Oahu, and then moved to Denver almost 5 years ago.
Okay. Do you like it?
Yeah. It's huge culture shock.
Uh-huh.
I definitely still kind of feel it, which is really interesting. But yeah, it's been really crazy to show up at the end of December and be like, what's this white stuff on the ground? And I'd kind of seen snow one time in Ohio, but other than that, I've never seen feet of snow.
Yeah, and now you're just in it for months at a time.
Yeah.
But fortunately, you've got this sanctuary that you basically live at, right? Do you guys have showers and all of that in your place? And is it 24 hour?
No.
Okay.
So it's usually 6 a.m. to either 10 or 11, and then on the weekends it's 8 to 8 or 8 to 6.
Okay.
But I have a key to the building. They've always said if there's ever an emergency, just to go inside.
Right.
So,
There you go.
Cool.
Yeah.
There's a gym up in Oceanside called Vital that if you're paying for a day session or whatever, I think they're only open pretty limited hours, so like 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. or something.
Yeah.
But if you're a member, you get a key card, and so it's like such a van life fantasy sort of place. I don't think that it's totally legal to park a lot of the places in Oceanside, but you do see some sort of conspicuous van life happening around it. The thing for me is like, I was like, oh my God. And before I even knew you and about your situation, I was like, oh, I could get into climbing, and if I had a job at this place, I could just stay right in that little zone and have everything I needed, because they have yoga classes and showers and coffee and all of that. Yeah. But I don't know anything about climbing, so I'm not getting hired at a climbing gym anytime
There was
soon.
like a good moment. He's like, yeah, I'm going to get a job at a climbing gym. And I was like, what are you talking about?
And then I was like, wait a second.
You literally don't
I don't even know the fucking
now.
lingo.
Yeah.
You know?
You don't use the gym amenities at our gym.
No, I
so
don't. No, I don't.
Yeah.
I got him to go to one yoga class when we were real hungover.
Yeah. A few weeks ago.
Is it time?
That
Did
was
that
good.
last the
That
whole
was close.
5 minutes? You're going to be polite?
So I want to get into your van and that stuff real quick, but before we move away from Hawaii, I've only spent 3 weeks in Hawaii. I did one trip where I spent 2 weeks on Kauai and then 1 week on Oahu, and even in that short of amount of time, I feel like I recognized that I would get island fever if I was there long enough.
Yeah.
Because especially on Oahu, which is like really busy, I was just like, I can't get away from this. Like, there are places that you can go kind of remote, mountain or whatever, but then the rest of it is just like busy everywhere. Are you just acclimated because you grew up in it, or?
No, that's kind of why I left.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I had this grand dream of moving to LA, and I was like, California's where it's at. This is where I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
And then I visited LA for about a month after I graduated high school when I was in college, and I was like, maybe I won't move there.
It's intense.
Yeah, it was a lot. And I mean, my dad's from San Diego, so we would come here all the time. But it's very different visiting family than like driving on a freeway.
Sure.
At 19, I was like, oh no, this isn't what I want.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was offered relocation assistance and a promotion with H&M back when I moved to Colorado, and so I was like, this is literally my golden ticket out to kind of at least experience something else.
Sure.
So
Do you think you'll go back?
maybe when I'm old and ready to retire.
Right.
But it's kind of hard because all of my friends that are still there, like, they have their job and all of that, and it works there, but I feel like with everything I'm doing, like, I don't know what I would do for work, because there's one climbing gym pretty much in the entire state, and it's on Oahu, and I don't think I'd want to go back to Oahu. So it's kind of like, I don't know, if I had a fully remote gig, then that would be something to look into, but
I feel like Maui probably, I haven't been there, but just looking at the map, like it's more sparsely populated and larger, right? And so it's probably a little easier to not feel like totally claustrophobic there.
Yeah. And they're building, like, they just redid part of the airport, and I went home last January, and then the January before that, and even in that year time, it was kind of crazy.
Everything's changing.
Yeah. They're adding, like, more than 2 lanes to the highway, and like, but I don't know if they'd ever be able to actually do, like, a freeway.
Right.
Because I don't know where you would go.
Well, that's sort of the thing, right? On Oahu, it's just like a circle.
Yep.
With a couple of times you can go sideways across or whatever, but it's basically just a circle of highway. So, why climbing? Why are you working at a climbing gym? Were you, like, into climbing before you started?
I got into climbing from an ex.
Okay.
And that was kind of like the, hey, if we're going to do this, this is my life. And you can either climb or see you later.
Fuck off. Yeah.
So I tried it, and I was like, this is cool. I kind of went, like, balls to the walls and bought shoes, a harness, a helmet, like everything I needed right off the bat. And then tried it and was like, okay, this is kind of scary. Then I tried it again, and I was like, this is a little less scary. And then it just kind of progressed. But once that relationship ended, I was like, I don't want to sell my climbing gear. I still want to go climbing. And there was a span that I didn't have a job for like 5 months, and I was climbing like 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. awesome.
Cool, yeah.
So then at the end of that, I was like, okay, I'm running out of money. I should probably get a job. And then our location opened up. And within I think I had my interview on either a Monday or Tuesday. And I was still sitting in the parking lot and got the email being like, hey, we'd love to offer you a job. And then the next day I bought the van.
Okay.
So it was two things, one after the other. And I was
right
like,
on.
okay.
I've taken a couple of those 5-month sort of hiatus from working.
Yeah.
I'm just at the tail end of one of them right now. And I think they're great.
Yeah.
I got into a little panic mode both times, Oh shit, what's going to go down? Like, credit card is getting a little high, and I'm pretty good about paying my shit off. But I don't regret doing it either time.
Yeah.
So you got the job and then you bought the van. Was there a causal relationship there? You're like, oh, got the job, let's do it.
No. So when that relationship I was in, when it ended, I kind of panicked. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I had to quit my job, move out of that van and into another. So we were in a van.
So you were in a van, okay.
Yeah. And it was pretty new. So we moved into that van full time in November. And then we broke up at the end of February.
Okay.
So March, I ended up staying with a friend who graciously let me stay there for that entire period. Up until August. And it was kind of like, okay, what am I going to do? I don't have a job. I'd love to do my photography full time. And that kind of snowballed into what if I started photographing things that people left on the side of the road and made a coffee table book. And then that, as I started kind of looking for little pieces like that, I was like, okay, this would be a lot harder to actually find content and create this. And then I was talking to my dad and he was like, well, what about stuff from people's relationships?
Ooh.
And I was like, that's a good idea. And then it kind of snowballed more and I was like, okay, so now, and it's been my passion project for the last year and a half. It's called the Heartbreak Roadtrip.
See, babe, I shouldn't have thrown all those old girls' photos away. Just kidding.
Yes, we should carry them around in this tiny van with us. Just let the pictures just sit in one of the small spaces we have to look at.
Put them right here. Back.
Make a collage on the door. No. We can do that if we get a toilet. We'll make a collage on the toilet.
Well, they're all gone now. That was a very nice cleanse. So the Heartbreak Road Trip.
So for the last year and a half, I've been collecting items from people from their past relationships that they are ready to let go of and destroying them in beautiful landscapes and photographing it. And the end result is going to be a coffee table book.
Dope.
So I launched a Kickstarter during that hiatus period and was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I was doing smaller photo gigs to at least pay the big bills that I needed to pay that I couldn't be like, hey, it'll be a couple months. So that turned into kind of where all of my energy was going. So I was climbing and doing that. And so then that was kind of why I got the van. And so in the same week, I was like, I should get a job. And then I looked at Stormy Daniels, my van. And 1981 Chevy G10. Would not recommend if you don't know anything about mechanics, which I don't. So I've spent a lot of time and money in and out of the van getting it fixed. And I actually just got off the phone with a mechanic today.
How's it going?
And he's like, I'm not going to charge you for this. Because he had tuned it 2 weeks ago and done some other stuff, added a zip tie to my carburetor and a butterfly clip. And then I dropped it off before I left for this trip. And he was just like, okay, I'm going to probably drop your gas tank, see what's in it. Because who knows? It had been sitting for a year before I bought it. And I talked to him today and he's like, I don't want to dump $50 of gas down my drain. It's also snowing. So I think we're at a good place. I took the zip tie off and it's running really well. And I was like, here we go.
Great.
So we'll see. I'll probably drive it around once I get back. But I'm going to see how it goes and then still have him drop the tank and clean it out. But yeah, so that kind of segued. But
81.
Yep.
Wow. That's almost as
How
old
many
as me.
miles?
I have no idea. There are only 5 numbers on the odometer.
Oh, okay.
And so it says like 55,000 and some change, but that could have reset 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the body
hilarious.
is really well taken care of.
Uh-huh.
There was some rust inside, like in between the seats and everything, and there were some massive leaks that caused mold, which caused a total rebuild. So it's been an adventure for the last like year and couple months.
What? Okay, I was gonna ask this because of the name. What's the timeline of you purchasing this van? Like what month and year was that?
It was August, so not this past August, but the August before, so August 2018.
Okay, so you weren't just a Stormy Daniels fan.
No.
This is a reaction to some stuff that's been in the news.
I was drunk at an Illegal Pete's, which is kind of like a different chain of Chipotle. It's kind of similar to Chipotle. And I had a margarita, and I had looked at the van with a friend, and I was with that friend, and it was like somebody's birthday party, and all of a sudden I was just like, Stormy Daniels.
It's fucking hilarious.
That's funny.
I love
That's
it.
a good one.
I think it's so funny.
Yeah.
Get me the scissors.
Also, I want to talk about
He's now just picking it apart.
I want to talk about your build, but something else just came up that I can't gloss over. Illegal Pete? Please tell me this chain is owned by a brown person, at least.
I have no idea.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
I mean, wow, dude. We've got to look into that.
I thought it sounded like a speakeasy or something at first. I was
no,
like, oh,
it's
is
a
this
Mexican
kind of
restaurant.
Yeah, no, then
named
I
Illegal
figured that out, and I was
Pete's.
like,
I'm not sure I'm okay with
okay.
that.
That's fucked.
Wow, I really hope this is owned by like some snarky Hispanic person, at least.
It might be.
Yeah, somebody with a sense of humor.
Yeah. Who's poking fun at the xenophobia.
I really can't do this.
Oh yeah, just whatever you do, don't cut your hand open.
That's what's probably gonna happen. The things I do for you, dog.
So what's not in your crotch, babe? Yeah, the upholstery at least. So what's the build in your van like?
So I would say it's probably a similar size to this.
Okay.
It might be, I think it's probably a little bit taller. But when I stand up, I have to like hunch over like
Sure.
Yeah.
like Urkel or something.
I know the drill.
So the back is a bed because I fit window to window.
Okay, dope.
I think without any of my wall panels or anything, it's almost 6 feet.
Oh, okay.
And then with everything, it's like more than 5'3" because I'm 5'3" and there's like this much space on my head and my feet. So bed underneath, I just have like those bins from Target that are fabric that like pop open.
Yeah.
And then actual plastic like big bins in the back.
Okay.
In the back under the bed is also where my battery is. And then all the wiring is like on this side. But so I have 2 back windows. So there's no like structural integrity on the passenger side. So I essentially had to like attach stuff to stuff and shove it in and hope it would stay. And I glued stuff to the wall. So that was a little challenging. And then next to the bed, so right over here behind the seat, is my little kitchenette.
Okay.
I don't have a sink, so I don't have running water, but I have one of those Camp Chef stove oven combos.
Okay.
And so I essentially built all that around that. And so I have that, and then I have those magnetic strips with like the spice containers here, and then I added like a little wall back here and put a few more of the spice racks, so it kind of sandwiched it all in. And then there's one big door with like a shelf. And then there's a little one on the side and like a tiny little one that I put like a broom and my cutting board in on this side.
Okay.
But, and then as you open the door, I think it has 4 shelves and it's just like a little bookshelf cubby thing that me and my cousin built.
Yeah.
We were very proud of it.
Cool.
And her husband came home and he was just like, you guys did this all by yourself? And she's like, yeah, we don't need you. Like, got super stoked about it. Yeah, it's very basic, very easy, but it works.
Do you have a fan?
Yeah.
And solar?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have 200-watt Windy Nation solar panels.
Okay.
And then a charge controller that's like on the back end, so I don't really see what it's doing.
Yeah.
But all that plugs in is the fan. I have 4 little lights, just like yours.
Yeah.
And then a USB, like 4-port plug-in.
Oh, so you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
It's so nice being short because if I was the one driving all the time, there'd be so much more space behind the driver's seat.
Have at it, dude.
No, I'm good.
I would love to be chauffeured
I'm good,
around.
but like... And then all the vans we're looking at now, I'm like, well, I can sleep sideways in that.
Why don't you shrink a little bit? And it's actually good for my Napoleon complex, you know, because I'm not a large man. I'm just bigger than her.
He's like, we have to look and see if we can sleep that way. I'm like, well, I can, so you figure it
She's like,
why don't you just sleep in a
this
ball?
checks all the boxes for me. Why are you so high maintenance?
I'm like, oh, I could do the 6-foot transit because that's way taller than I am. But he'd be like crunched up against it.
So
you got peanut butter on me.
when you moved into the van with the X, what was your anticipation? What were your expectations for that? What was your attitude about it?
I was pumped.
Yeah.
My parents were freaked out.
Yeah.
They were just like, you don't really know this guy. We had met like 2.5 months prior to that. But we worked together, so I saw him all the time. And then the relationship kind of like...
Snowballed.
Oh, yeah. Like real quick. Which was fine at the time until it wasn't. But, so he bought the van at the beginning of November in Kansas and then drove it back to Colorado. Had never even looked at it. Didn't get it checked at a mechanic. Didn't do anything. He's probably gotten it checked now because it's been a year or 2. And it was just like, yeah, I got this cool van. And it's the Dodge Sprinter. So big, tall, like it's the extended one. So there's more than enough space for 2 people and a full-size chocolate lab.
Yeah.
But yeah, he drove it back. His parents were moving out of the state, which is where he was living, in about 2 weeks. So we built out everything in about 5 days.
Awesome.
It was like sunrise to after sunset, just like a lot of work. It wasn't perfect by any means, but it worked for the time. And it was kind of like, okay, are we going to kill each other or is this going to be cool? And it was pretty cool. Even like up until I was very blindsided by the whole breakup. So I noticed it kind of started feeling weird, and in the van it felt a lot of tension, and it's a lot easier to notice that when it's in a small space. So I was like, okay, something's not right. And then we just kept having that same conversation for a couple nights in a row. And then finally he was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And he's like, but you're not allowed to get a hotel, but you can't stay in the van, but you can't leave. And I was like, what? So, but what? And he's like, yeah, I don't want you in here for more than a couple days, but I also don't know where you're gonna go, and I'm not allowing you to get a hotel. He's like, so you can stay here until you figure it out, but don't make it more than a day or 2.
Not allowing you to get a hotel.
Yeah.
That's the bizarre thing to me.
I'm like,
the rest of that is sort of understandable weird breakup stuff. But you can't, hey, you're not mine anymore. I have no more say in your life. But also, here's what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that was the first thing, my parents were saying. They were just like, do we need to, help you get a hotel?
Yeah.
And I was like, no. He said no. And they're like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, I don't know. I'm really upset.
Oh, no.
Gnarly.
But, so I stayed in the van 2 more nights after that, and then packed up I still had a car, which, thank God. But, so I packed up my CRV and drove to a friend's house who I had met, twice. And I was like, hey, shit hit the fan. I might move back to Maui. And she's like, no, I have an extra room in my house.
Okay.
So, I was
Awesome.
Wow.
That's good. That's... I used to have a Honda CRV, and this is before any thought of living in a vehicle or anything, but I spent tons of nights in that thing, just going through on road trips and stuff, and that's actually a really comfortable automobile if you're going to sleep in one. We were only together for 5 or 6 months.
6 or 7. I think it was maybe closer to 7 when we moved in.
Into the van, and I was I was really worried about that scenario, you know, because every relationship I've been in my entire life is a failure before this one so far.
It was like 7.5 when we moved in.
And it had been a relatively short relationship.
Yeah.
And it was a situation where, like, I was like, you have to keep a place to stay. You know, you need to have a place to stay because I'm not going to be responsible for you being, like, out without a plan. And now we've been in the van for a year and a half, and it's cool.
Yeah.
You know?
And I had an apartment until January.
And you still have another
And
room,
then I
too.
Yeah, I got a room at my mom's, and I stayed in it like 5 times while he was gone, and I don't think I've really like barely stayed in it since then.
It was scary, you know, like the proposition of putting somebody in that sort of situation is intense. But you clearly liked living in the van enough to. Why'd you do it again on your own?
Pretty much for the project.
Yeah, isn't it so fucking fun?
Yeah,
I loved it.
And just like. I needed, because originally my grand plan with the Heartbreak Roadtrip was to get like a large chunk of money from the Kickstarter and be able to travel full time for an entire year and not have to worry about needing a job or doing whatever, and just kind of finishing all of it in a year and being good to go, and then kind of figuring life out. Yeah. And since that didn't happen, and I got like a third of what I originally wanted from the Kickstarter, I had to cancel it and relaunch it, knowing that like, okay, this whole like grandeur dream wasn't going to happen. Right. So I was like, okay, I still want to be able to save money. Made sense to get a van. My budget was significantly smaller for a van, so I was like, okay, $1,500 for something that runs. Quote unquote. But as soon as I bought it, drove it straight to a mechanic. They replaced the transmission, all of the hoses, all of the belts, because everything was deteriorating.
Oh yeah.
And then like
we're talking about like a 35-year-old van. Right? Yeah. 36-year-old van. That's crazy.
So it's 10 years older than me, and I'll be 29 in April. Yeah. So it's like, well, I sure did pick one. Yeah. But it's been an adventure. I know a lot more about mechanical stuff than I did at the beginning. So now when people are like, you have to do this, this, and this, I'm like, I already did that. I'm not doing it again.
Yeah. So what did you do for the Heartbreak Road Trip? How much have you done? Where did you travel?
So I've done probably like 85 to 90%. I actually brought some stuff from one of my relationships from a couple of years ago on this trip because he was from California. So I was like, I'll destroy it here. So that'll be fun. I should probably do that today.
Okay, in the rain?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do to it?
It's 2 like Christmas stockings that I had made. Yeah. And then an old tank top that he had given me that like didn't fit him anymore. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. Yeah. I haven't really figured it out yet. Yeah. I don't think I want to do it at the beach, but maybe like looking over something. But he was also like hardcore city person, so maybe like going to like where there's shops or something. Right. That might be cool. Yeah. I haven't really figured it out yet. But I had about 30-ish different like items for people. Okay. And then when I set out on my month-long trip, I went up through Wyoming into Montana, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, and then Northern California, and then through Nevada and Utah, back to Colorado in about a month. Okay. Cool. And the van broke down twice. Oh no. Or I guess technically 3 times. So when I was in Spokane, my radiator fan clutch went out, which was totally unexpected. Easy, like $250 fix, not a big deal. Yeah. And then when I got to Tahoe, the carburetor was clogged and the van wouldn't accelerate at all, and it kept dying when I would take a turn. So I got that taken care of. And then as I was going back into Colorado, going over Vail Pass, the van completely died. Going up the hill on I-70. So
wait a second, let me restart this.
Damn, dude.
So, I'm excited to hear your answers to these. First of all, I have no idea what the fucking something fan clutch is. I don't know anything about cars. And the reason that I bought this like expensive newish van was because the people whose like tutorials and website I was using to do my build, they had an old van, and I was like, I don't know what this couple's deal is, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know mechanics, and I'm not putting several $1,000s of raw materials into a build in something that's going to break down.
Yeah.
And so I went ahead and like got the loan and the more expensive thing. And the thing that's really terrified me about the prospect of the van breaking down is that I sleep here at night. Like, what has your experience been? Okay, first of all, you're over Vail Pass on I-70.
Yeah.
The van breaks down. What time of year is this?
This was beginning of September.
Okay, so it's not real cold yet.
No.
But you're sitting on the interstate.
Yeah.
Do you get towed by AAA?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll set the stage.
Yeah.
It was about 6 p.m. And it was starting to rain.
Oh, God. Yeah. Perfect. Awesome.
Yep. So, and I mean, I had driven over Vail Pass last November in the van, and everything was fine.
Okay.
But obviously this time, the shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
And so I was going over Vail Pass, and I noticed it like wasn't accelerating at all. So I was kind of like ooh, on the gas, and nothing was happening.
Yeah.
And then finally, because it had kind of been doing this previously, as if I would take a turn too sharp or something, it would just die. And it did that, but I was going up the hill, and I had just barely enough momentum to crank the wheel and
get over
off.
on the side. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I tried to start a couple times. It would start, but as soon as I stepped on the gas, even in park, it would just shut off. And so I got out, opened the hood, saw nothing. It wasn't like exceptionally hot or anything. And I remember calling my dad, and he's like, "Get the fuck out of the road." I was like, "I'm obviously not calling you from the middle of the road." So, okay.
I did that.
And I was 93 miles away from the climbing gym.
Okay.
And I have like the second tier of AAA, which gives you a 300-mile tow.
Ooh.
And it has full service. I was like, oh, thank God. So I tried to start it one more time, and I was like, I honestly don't know how far up the pass I even am to know if like I could potentially try to just like baby my way up it. Turns out I was like this far up it, and not far at all.
Oh, good.
And it probably would have been even worse because there were no other pullouts farther up. So I waited 2 hours for AAA. It started to pour rain, and I was like, okay, well, at least I'm in here.
At least I'm in my house.
Yeah, and so the driver pulled up, put the van on it, and he had 2 dogs in his tow truck, and he's like, "Hope you like dogs." I was like, "I love dogs." So it worked out. It was about an hour and a half back to the gym.
Yeah.
And he dropped it off, and I took a photo of the van on it. It was like the end of the Heartbreak Roadtrip. Wouldn't have been the Heartbreak Roadtrip if the van would have gotten me all the way back here.
Fair enough.
So, yeah, I feel really lucky that it happened when and where it did, and
Yeah.
it wasn't like somewhere I didn't have service or more than 100 miles.
Better there than out in the middle of Utah somewhere or something.
Because I was in the middle of Utah.
A little while ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
A couple hours before that.
Wow.
So, yeah, even though it's been kind of crazy, it's definitely, sometimes things have been in my favor. So.
Have you been in a situation where you're like, oh, they won't let me stay in my van and they're working on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was lucky, and last fall, I had a friend who was also living in an older van full time, and she worked nights, and I worked during the day, and she had a dog also at that time. So she would park at the gym. She had an SUV that she would drive to work, so I could sleep in her van, and then I would go into work, and when she would come back from work, she'd grab the keys, and she would sleep in the van during the day. It worked out wonderfully, and it was about 2 weeks that I had to do that with her.
Yeah.
So I was like, thank God I have cool friends who are like down to park somewhere since I don't have another vehicle.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then since then it's only been maybe a day or two at a time. So that's super easy to find, like a couch to sleep on for a night.
Sure.
But yeah.
Wow. I'm gonna drive extra gingerly for the next couple of days.
Yeah.
I drive pretty calmly to begin with, but well, let's see what else. So what's the prognosis for the book?
So after that trip, I didn't get to finish it like I had wanted, which is fine because I've kind of been doing it in stages. Mm-hmm. I don't know what just happened. I'm breathing too much air.
I'm breathing too much air.
So actually today I just finished going through all of the photos that I already had and kind of selecting the ones that I want to put into Lightroom and Photoshop and start actually editing. Mm-hmm. So that process has kind of at least come almost to a stop for me to be able to like keep moving forward.
Are you the one in these photos? Are you the one destroying the items?
I usually do the destruction off camera, and then it's just like it looks like it's been left there, like a relic of the past.
Is there a before and after photo, or just the destroyed thing?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Okay.
But then with everything, I asked everyone to write down what it meant for them to let it go. Mm-hmm. So in the book, and through like talking about it with other people have recommended that I add kind of how I feel throughout the whole process, like at each stage and with different stuff. And I have a decent amount of stuff in there too, but just kind of like what that looks like from the other side of like one of my friends gave me like a piece of paper and a strip of photos, and I remember pulling up to this place that I'd never been before, and I started crying, and I was just like, this is a place that meant something for that relationship, and like here I am showing up here and being like, my sole purpose is to like throw this away here so no one ever sees it again. But that was interesting. I noticed that happening, not a lot, but like people who I actually were like really good friends with and like heard the whole story, and some of the stories I had actually like witnessed the relationship like start and end. So it was very interesting. And by the end of it, stuff that I had collected at the very beginning of the project, I had been holding on to for over a year at that point. And I was like, okay, so now I'm attached to
You were
this
familiar
stuff.
with these items at the very least at that point.
Yeah. And so even as I'm going through photos, like I know exactly whose stuff what is, and like that's kind of crazy too. And this girl that I met in a coffee shop, she climbs at my gym now, and she gave me an entire box of everything from their like multi-year relationship, and I threw it away in Yosemite, and for whatever reason I like held it and was like, bye, and then put it in the dumpster. So it's been very interesting, and some stuff I like wouldn't throw away. And I had a friend that met up with me in Yellowstone on the trip, and he's like, why are you holding on to this?
You gotta get rid of this stuff.
And he's like, can I see the photos? And I was like, yeah. And I showed him the photos, and he's like, you have at least 5 in here that are like the money shot. Like, why are you still holding on to this? It's like, I don't know. If I throw it away, it's gone forever. He's like, yeah, that's the point.
That's
like,
the
throw
point.
it away.
Wow, what an interesting journey.
Yeah.
That's
Do you find
crazy.
it's cleansing for the people who give you things and cleansing for you?
I think so. I mean, it definitely has been for me. And I've had a couple of people reach back out and be like, knowing that I'll never see this again is actually like really healing. So that's been, it's been nice to actually have people reach out and say that. And so I know it's not just like just for me. So.
And even if it is just for you, that's fine. So just have a pitch here. Okay. You're welcome to use it or not. But today is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Which means that 2 days from now is Black Friday.
Yes.
And I hate that Mariah Carey song. So I'm thinking that if you're going to destroy a stocking, a Christmas stocking, in a busy shopping place, Friday while that song was playing might be a really good opportunity to ruin somebody's season. You know what I mean? You can really achieve a whole lot with this project.
That would
like
be amazing.
Over at the Forum in Carlsbad, there's a bunch of like bougie stores right next to each other. The Apple Store and Lululemon and Anthropology are all in seeing distance from the same place. That would warm my heart. Just because I'm evil, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great idea. But unfortunately, I fly out on Friday morning.
Oh shoot! I forgot about that.
And then, so maybe I could do it in the airport.
The airport would be fucking
even
fun.
better.
People going
even
home.
better.
For the holidays.
Like, people are running to catch these late flights, and you're just down on the ground, all fours tearing apart this stocking with your teeth.
Go down. That's hilarious.
Okay.
Do you,
Go ahead. No.
do you do it in different ways? Do you get creative with how you destroy everything?
Yeah.
That's gotta be kind of fun.
It's been really fun. So some people, if their relationship was like fiery or whatever, they'll be like, burn it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have been like, do whatever you want. So,
what's some crazy stuff you've done?
with some letters, it's kind of weird, but I folded them into like origami boats and then put them in a lake.
Okay.
And like some of them were sinking kind of, and like I tried to make it so you could at least read like words or some of the words on the letters. And then I went to Paradise when I was in Chico, and so that stuff I didn't even destroy.
You just left it there.
Set it there.
Ooh, that's dark.
And there was like a car that had been completely burned, and so I put like a CD on the dashboard and like did some stuff like that. So it just all kind of depends on where. There was a hoodie that I had from a relationship from like a long time ago, and I cut out kind of where it sat like over my heart.
Okay.
And then just like dunked it in the sand, and like there were some photos of me wearing it, and then I put it just like on the shore break for some other photos. So it just kind of depended on like what the story was from them and like the vibe I got. But I tried to make sure it wasn't all through fire or all just like me cutting stuff up, just so there's a little bit of differentiation. I can't speak anymore.
That's awesome.
Okay. Are you gonna destroy the van?
Sometimes I really want to light it on fire, but probably not.
That'd probably be, from an environmental perspective, it'd probably not be advisable.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to get caught, too.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, that's
I think probably by the time the book is done and I'm ready to like be done with the project, unless like volume 2 magically appears, I'll probably sell the van.
Yeah.
And that'll kind of be my way of like destroying it.
Yeah, sure. Are you... Well, of course, we don't know when this is going to be, but at that point, do you think you might get another van?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so you're
definitely
into
the goal.
this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My big picture goal is to have a vehicle that I know will get me over any pass, anywhere. I could drive 20 hours in a day if I wanted and it wouldn't overheat and explode.
Yeah.
So the end goal is either like fresh off the lot or within the last like 5 years, and then build it out, be able to stand and like have enough storage space that I can get rid of my storage unit and just like have literally everything I own in this vehicle and be able to travel. So
yeah. Yep. We're on that same page. I thought I was going to hate living in a van, and I don't have any intention of getting an apartment in the foreseeable future. So you mentioned this earlier, like, well, and you said, this is a question I always like to ask people because it's been a weird journey for me, and different people experience the stigma in so many different ways. The reason that you gave that your parents were worried about you moving in the van with the guy is because you didn't really know him.
Yeah.
Were your family, friends, loved ones, whoever, people around you, anxious about the van for the van's sake? Or are they now?
So now, not so much. When we originally moved into that first van, we had plans to quit our jobs, travel the country, and film a documentary. And so it was like this creative passion that I had jumped on board with that had nothing to do with me. And I poured literally everything into it. And my mom was like, are you doing this for him or are you doing this for you? And I was like, I'm doing it for me. I was doing it for him. But like they were a little less freaked out about me living in the van because we had a giant like 70-pound dog and like 2 full-grown humans and like ice axes for ice climbing and like stuff like that. So they felt a little bit better about that aspect. It was just like, are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
And then when I got my van, it was like, okay, well, you're going to be stationary, so it's okay. Type of thing. But it was still a little like, are you going to be safe? Make sure you lock your doors. Are you going to have pepper spray? Like my dad bought me a taser and pepper spray.
Oh, goodness.
So I have both of those, which I've never had to use either, which is great. But when I was on my month-long trip, I had to call and or text my parents every single day and like tell them where I was and make sure I had service. So I think when I'm actually on the road, they're a little like, this freaks us out. But and I've had people be like, you don't look like you live in a van. Like, well, isn't that the point? Like, so yeah,
what does that look like anyway?
I don't know.
What does a person who lives in a van look like?
It's like homeless, maybe.
Yeah.
It's just very interesting, like the weird stigma of you live in a van because you want to, and you live in a van because you have to.
Sure.
But the people who have to probably don't have like springers or like vans that are built out. It's just like all of.
Well, the thing that I've been thinking about recently too, it's interesting because there's this cultural proximity for people who live in vehicles, no matter how electively, because either you're destitute, and for some reason we have no problem with poor shaming in this country, or because you're a slacker freeloader who doesn't want to pay rent. Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I acknowledge that for me, finances have a lot to do with my decision to live in a van, because even though I bought a pretty new van, my rent before this van was, even when you add in gas and insurance and registration to my car payment, I'm still saving $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, I've been recently sort of reevaluating the idea of people who choose to live in a van, quote unquote, choose to live in a van, versus people who quote unquote, have to live in a vehicle, because I don't know, I'm on a spectrum between those two things, right? Like, I could afford an apartment, but I wouldn't be as close to the beach. I wouldn't be able to go live in LA for a couple of months, in a few months, when she's got a gig. Yeah. And so there's a big, massive gray area in there. Yeah. This affords us a lot of opportunities. Where was your, and I imagine, I mean, that's part of the deal for you, right?
Absolutely.
It's way cheaper, even when you have to get your van fixed pretty regularly. It's still way cheaper than
It's so much
renting.
cheaper. Because if you think about it,
you own your van outright, too. Yeah.
I don't have payments, and so if there's 1 month I have to put $2,000 into the van, cool. That's essentially a month and a half of rent anywhere else.
Right.
And at the end of the day, like, even if I had to spend $1,000 on the van a month, that's still less than probably what I would be paying in an apartment.
Sure.
So it's crazy.
It is wild. Where was your month-long trip?
So that was when I went up through Wyoming, Montana.
Oh, this is this one. Okay.
Yeah.
That was this year then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. When you finish the book, get another van, are you going to continue to work at the gym? We're not putting in your notice right now or anything, but like,
ideally,
do you have some other ambition?
It would be really cool if, kind of in the same chain of events that I got that job and that van, that like, it would be really nice if when I get a new van, I have something set up to where I could potentially either leave my job there, or with such the grand like expansion that we're going through right now, there's a lot of potential for like steps up in my current role. Right. So that would probably be a lot easier to be remote than what I'm doing now.
And then potentially even moving from location to location, right? Because you have so many locations that it'd be fun to move around and go spend a month at each one or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dope.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah, that's super fun, dude.
I'm hoping the more people I tell, the more it'll just like manifest.
Start to happen.
Yeah.
I'm bad at asking for things from people, and every time I do, I get it. And so I gotta fucking get over it, you know what I mean? Yeah. I think that's really how it works. Yeah. People don't get mad at you for wanting to do something, normally. You know. Well, what did we miss?
I don't know.
How are people gonna find your book when it happens?
So I have an Instagram specifically for it.
Okay. What's that?
It's at the Heartbreak Roadtrip.
Okay.
And then I don't post on it as much as I probably should. But Should probably also make a website, but I haven't done that either.
What's your personal gram if you want people following it?
Yeah, it's AKPOW, the number 4. So AK Powell 4.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've kind of been like cross promoting both. So if someone goes to one, they'll find the other.
Oh, here's a question.
Yeah.
That I would have been so embarrassed not to have asked. You're in a 38-year-old van, and you are living at a climbing gym in Denver. It's fucking cold, man. What's up with that?
Yeah.
What do you
like really cold?
Do you have a little like a bonfire in your van every night, or what? How do you stay warm?
I wish the van would just be the whole bonfire. I need to stop saying that, or one day it's going to catch on fire.
It sounds like it keeps trying to.
But I have one of those. So it's not the Mr. Buddy that goes right onto a canister. It's the one like the canister that goes into, or you can attach a hose. So I have a 20-pound propane tank, and then like the medium-sized Mr. Buddy.
Okay.
And I mean, the space is so small, it heats up within like.
And you're insulated too, probably.
Yeah. I have denim insulation on the walls. I have like 1/2-inch foam on the floor, which is always going to be freezing either way. And then I have like 1.5-inch foam on the ceiling.
Okay.
And it's, I mean, before I found the mold and had to gut everything, I had 1/2-inch everywhere and didn't realize that there was literally no difference from outside to inside, and was always like, why am I so cold? Oh, this sucks. And then as soon as I redid that, I was laying in the van with my mattress on the floor right by the sliding door, all of my shit in the back, because I lived in the van while I rebuilt it.
Right.
Which I would not recommend, because it's really challenging and you have to pull all of your stuff in and out every time you do something. But so I didn't have my heater in there, and it snowed because it was May and April. It even snowed in June.
Wow.
In Denver, which was crazy this year. But it was the same temperature as it was when I had the insulation that I thought I had done before. So I was like, okay, well, I guess that makes me feel better to know that, like, it literally was doing nothing. Yeah. So now there's, like, a big difference, and it's been great. So, yeah. With that, and then I do have a lot of friends who live super close to the gym, and they're always like, it's -2 outside, do you want to come over? And I'm like, yep. But I've definitely braved through it. Yeah. So, yeah, I've weirdly gotten used to it, but being here for like 9 days will probably totally fuck that up.
Yeah.
Spoiled.
Yeah. Well, but you're supposed to be depressed. It's drizzling outside.
This is still really nice weather.
You should be sad now. You should be sad.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we did it. Can you think of anything else, bud?
No, you're awesome.
Yeah, that was fun. Thank you for coming on the thing.
Of course.
We'll put links to your Instagram and then all the deals so that people don't have to remember this stuff. Yeah, good luck tearing stuff up in the airport.
Thanks.
I hope
I might try to do it not in the airport, but we'll see how
You might get in trouble depending on how you try and do it if you're in an airport. That's like a very high security place to try and destroy anything.
It's like, hey, can I borrow some scissors?
You're like, no.
They'd be like, no. It's like, okay, well, can you cut this in half for me?
Cool. All right, there we go. We did it. Thank you, Allie.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we did it. That was episode 38 of From the Van, featuring Allie Powell. We had a really great conversation. I was very pleased that we got on so well. I think that we'll be friends with Allie for quite some time. I really appreciate you if you've hung on and listened for this long, and we'll have another episode for you next Tuesday.